Vocal revolution. Vocal revolution. Vocal revolution. Vocal revolution. Change the world with your voice.
Welcome everyone to the Vocal Revolution. This is where we talk about changing the world with the power of our voices, our own worlds personally and the world. And my guest today is a wonderful woman who's come to talk to us especially because we're coming up to International Women's Day. And Raakhi Shah is the CEO of The Circle, which is Annie Lennox's amazing charity, which is working hard to empower women and girls worldwide. And I joined The Circle in 2017 because I heard Annie talking about the principle of The Circle, which is that when women gather together in circles, they become empowered to take action, and those actions ripple out into the world. And I thought, I can go with that. That happens in my life. I see that happening, so I signed up immediately. And I'm just so thrilled Raakhi is here to talk about that with us today. It's just so exciting. She has over 16 years experience of international development, and before coming to The Circle she worked with Oxfam and Unicef, and she's particularly skilled at bringing voices from the field to the forefront. So thank you so much for joining me today, Raakhi.
Oh, Katie, thank you so much. And this is the power of The Circle, having wonderful members like you that, use their skills and resources to bring the voices of women to the forefront. So thank you for having me.
Oh, it's absolute pleasure, really. I'm so honoured that you're here. I'm so excited that we can today talk about how we can support women's voices, both those of it might be our own voices and within The Circle, and how that ripples out across the world. And I know you've got some exciting campaigns and things to talk to us about. But first of all, tell us a little about your story and how did you come to be in The Circle? What drew you to it?
So interestingly, I've been involved in The Circle right from the very beginning for over 12 years. So when it started off as a project and Annie had this wonderful idea, as you say, about bringing women together, I was working at Oxfam at the time, and Annie's a brilliant ambassador for them and came up with this idea of women empowering women. So I went to the first dinner that Annie organised with lots of esteemed women, and was super inspired and helped out on a couple of projects then. And then I moved away to different jobs at the time, but still kept my eye on The Circle and was involved in very different ways. And then when the chief exec job came up last year, I just felt so passionate about the organisation and came full circle back into it. So, I did start the first week of lockdown, so it was a bit of a roller coaster starting point, but it's been lovely to reconnect with so many women and also meet so many new members like yourself as well along the way.
That sounds so exciting. It's such a nurturing organisation to be part of, isn't it? And it's so empowering, and how wonderful that it feels very much like it's very encouraging of people to have that kind of circular journey of coming in and out and being part of different parts of The Circle. And perhaps you can explain a bit more to us about what the circles within The Circle as well, because I know there are many.
It's quite a unique organisation. So of course, women and male allies, we welcome everybody. You can come and join the larger circle and get involved in lots of different ways, from, fundraising, advocacy, signing petitions, etc. But we also have this unique element of circle committees, whether they're geographical or from different sectors, that people can get involved in. So we have a lawyers circle, a music circle, healthcare circle, an Asian circle, London, Oxford. So there's various different ways to get involved in. And the beauty of those is, as you say, they're like circles of connections, influence, really fun ideas as well. You never know what's going to come out of them, and that's the beauty of the overall organisation, is having fun along the way but making a difference. So that's what drew me to it, like many people, is that it is quite different, and it is all about women empowering women, and it's so important, especially ever more so now. So yeah, really pleased to be able to talk about it some more.
Oh, it's wonderful. Thank you for sharing your enthusiasm with us. I know it's just, so much spontaneity, as you say, spontaneous ideas, but also really structured. I know, for example, the Lawyers Circle doing some very structured work as well in terms of lobbying and, making some really significant strides forward, in different issues for women. And perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about I know we go under this banner of global feminism,
Mm.
and not maybe everyone might not have heard of that. Like, what is that? What is it? Is it different from normal feminism? Why do we need it even? That might be what people might be thinking. So perhaps you could tell us that, as that's a core concept, really, isn't it?
Yeah, global feminism was originally kind of conceived by somebody called Bell Hooks, kind of quite a few years ago, and it really, and Annie Lennox as our founder has, harnessed that and really brought it to the forefront. And it really is quite simply about women across the world building bridges between them, because we all face similar experiences, but also bringing to the forefront that feminism just isn't just about women in the West, but it's also about really vulnerable women in the global south that don't have particular safety nets or support to the levels that we might do. So it's about bringing together a collective of women across borders, building those connections and really supporting each other. So it's quite a simple but effective kind of way of what the circle is about. And a couple of years ago for International Women's Day, Annie and a few others launched a brilliant film, which people can find out. They can just Google Global Feminism in the Circle, and it featured Ed Sheeran, Mary J. Blige, Gwendolyn Christie from Game of Thrones, lots of other people talking about global feminism and bringing to the forefront some of the really horrifying statistics that happen across the world to women and girls. Really amazing film. And from there we've kind of just built on the campaign and the notion of global feminism kind of year on year, and it's going to be a really core part of our work going forward as we bring on more project partners, kind of re-clarify our mission and vision to support women across the world. It'll be really key, and it's gone down really well amongst supporters, and even though a lot of people haven't heard it, when you explain it, it really makes sense to people. So I'm really excited about more we can do to amplify that.
That is really exciting and really necessary, isn't it? Because yes, we may identify and say, yes, we can identify as women, but our experience as women is going to be really, really diverse across the world according to our circumstances and even the legislation in our countries. We've got women in some parts of the world where there's no legislation to protect them against things like domestic violence and, other issues. So it is hugely varied. And that's why we often hear that other term, which is intersectional feminism,
Yeah.
and the need to understand that different forms of oppression intersect. Perhaps you'd like to say a bit more about that.
And I think intersectionality can sometimes often be a clunky word, can't it? And people do hear it a lot, but you don't, sometimes often don't understand it. And I guess global feminism is another lens to look at it through. But for intersectionality really is, as you say, about looking at through different lenses that kind of overlay each other. And I think even more so at the forefront after last summer's Black Lives Matter protests and movement, that we are looking at things with those different lenses. So whether it's feminism, racial justice, they all overlap. So it's making sure that we are giving a voice to people and women from those different communities, because whilst there are absolutely fundamentals that we all experience, we have to look at them through particular lenses as well, where they might be finding something more targeted towards them. So that's what intersectionality is about. And also for the circle, it's about welcoming women from all walks of life. We're not there's no barriers at the circle, and I think that's the beauty, that if you come along and join, yes, you get to meet women who've got similar interests or like-minded, but you get to meet women who are completely different that you might not meet in other walks of lives. And so we're really trying to build on this sense of community, which I think you find when you join the circle in all the different events and activities that we do. So it's a really lovely feeling.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to being in person again, actually, and being able to come to events. And I've really benefited from the online events this last year as well. And that experience, as you say, of meeting women from totally different backgrounds. And I've made friends with people across the country, which is so exciting, through being part of the circle. So what's so lovely is not only are we supporting women around the world, but also we're growing our own circles, and then we become empowered and we feel more supported and nourished ourselves, and then that hopefully helps us be more active in the world.
It's been really hard this year not doing in-person events, because that is the lifeblood of the circle, you know, wherever you are, whether it's in the UK or abroad, and forming smaller circles with your friends and family, or these larger committees. But we've tried to do as many kind of online events without Zoom fatigue as possible, and actually circle members have really stepped up and created amazing events, you know, from panel discussions to quizzes to dance-a-thons to cook-alongs. So everyone's been really, really creative. And where there have been moments to sort of come together, for example, the Oxford Circle were going to do this, I love this idea, they were going to do a paddle boarding session on Halloween dressed as witches. It didn't come off because of the weather, but I just, you know, that's where, I mean, the fun of the circle really comes. I can see that going nationwide, to be honest. It's so good. So let's hope, you know, in the coming months, when it comes to autumn, we can do things like that a bit more again.
Oh, it would be so great. It would be so great. And yeah, this is being able to have fun while you're supporting, contributing is a great feeling. It's the best. It's a kind of a form of magic, I think, when you know that you've created something, but it's not just about you and the people involved, that there's a ripple out effect. And perhaps you could tell us a little bit about, obviously women have had specific impacts during COVID, and I know you have a very specific COVID appeal, and that's one of the things you've been focusing on this year. So perhaps just saying a little bit more about that, and how the circle's contributing, and what are the issues for women at this particular time.
Yeah, so obviously I started the first week of lockdown in the UK, and it was a really scary time for everybody. And one of the things we wanted to look at what was going to be our COVID response right from, you know, the outset. And speaking to our amazing grassroots project partners, they were already struggling with the impact just in those first few weeks. So we decided to launch our first global fundraising appeal, so the Women and Girls Solidarity Fund, pretty early on. I think it was early May, to try and raise funds to help support them and support the advocacy work we're doing. And we had all sorts of amazing initiatives happening. We had a big music auction with lots of artists supported, the panel discussions talked about, we did a 15-minute secret dance-a-thon, the Oxford Circle did. So lots of raising. We raised over £100,000 to date, which is extraordinary, and we've been able to give a number of grants to grassroots projects. So some of our projects include the non-sabre shelter in South Africa. So the funds there were used to help extend quarantine within the refuge, so that more women and children could come to the shelter once lockdown had opened. In Glasgow, with Glasgow and Clyde Rape Crisis, has supported funding their first ever tech support helpline, and women were accessing it within 48 hours. So there was a real clear need at the time for that. And we know the statistics around domestic violence globally were absolutely horrifying and continue to be. I mean, they were horrendous before the pandemic, but they shot up, you know, within days of lockdowns happening. And, you know, the UN estimates that there were 15 million more cases of domestic violence for every 3 months of global lockdowns, which is extraordinary. In the UK, there was a 25% increase to the national helpline. So the tech support helpline in Scotland, the extra quarantine space in South Africa. We're supporting in Uganda, supporting girls who are out of school to get ready for going back to school, giving emergency food parcels. And we're supporting garment workers as well. So there was a big stories at the beginning of the pandemic about how garment workers had kind of completely lost their livelihoods. Fast fashion companies had pulled contracts, hadn't fulfilled them. They were left destitute within days. So we supported a number of projects in Nepal, Myanmar and Bangladesh with emergency food and hygiene parcels, and also legal aid. So just last year alone, through the COVID appeal, we supported 5,000 women and girls around the world, which is extraordinary. And, you know, to any circle members or supporters listening who donated, like, thank you, because it's all down to them and the support that they showed during, you know, quite a difficult period.
So my experience of lockdown is that it's been kind of, as we said, kind of horrifying, but also really inspiring to see what's still possible. Even when we're all restricted, we can still somehow contribute to people who are facing devastating consequences, such as people women locked away with abusive partners, and this is just, you know, facing an absolute horror story, and that's just one issue that women are facing worldwide. So very inspiring that we can still come together and make that impact, because 5,000 women worldwide, that's amazing. And so perhaps as we come towards International Women's Day, I'm sure you're thinking about how you can make a very special impact at this time. So what are your plans?
Well, we are going to be launching in just a few days a new campaign, a positive and uplifting one. We wanted to do something that wasn't, you know, of course, there's, you know, horrifying statistics out there and, you know, real impact on women, but we wanted to do something positive and uplifting. So we're going to be launching a new campaign called Circles of Change, which goes back to the ethos of the circle, and it's going to be very much about amplifying women in your lives, or the activists that you consider to be in your circle of change, and then taking a pledge for gender equality, because International Women's Day is such a pivotal global moment for everybody to think about being inspired, but also recommitting to women's rights. So we're going to be launching a campaign. It's lovely, bright and visual. We're going to be asking people to post on social media their pledges and tag in their inspiring women, whether it's your mum, your sister, it might be a grassroots activist. I'm sure there's going to be lots of Greta Thunbergs being tagged in there. Yeah, and take a pledge, and it could be anything from making a donation to committing to do a fundraising activity to amplifying activists throughout the year to signing more petitions. So there's kind of a variety of a menu that people can get involved in, or you might just think up your own pledge for this year. So that's going to be one of the things that we're doing. And then, as well as part of that campaign, we're going to be hosting an event on International Women's Day itself. Our wonderful founder Annie Lennox is going to be in conversation with Baroness Lola Young about global feminism, and we're going to also have journalist and broadcaster Lindsay Hilson talking about one of our project partners, the Marie Colvin Journalist Network, which she helped set up in legacy of war correspondent Marie Colvin. So really exciting, and I hope everyone can join us, and that we can raise, you know, significant amount of funds for our grassroots project partners as well.
Fantastic. That sounds really exciting. I can't wait to get involved. And I think what I love, the principle that, you know, we each do what we can do, and we all know people, as you say. It could be just someone you know on your street or your community, or in your family, who you know to be just an extraordinary activist and someone who just keeps the wheels of life turning and supports people around them, and that we can each celebrate all of those people in our lives at all the levels that they are. And we can also commit to what's viable to each of us to do, because we're all in different circumstances, aren't we?
Yeah, I think that's what we wanted to make it, that, you know, we can give some suggestions, but it's really up to everybody to think, you know, there's a lot of people who are very busy out there who might want to do something simple but do really want to commit, or there might be people like you who are always coming up with great ideas and, you know, wanting to be more creative. So, and that's the beauty of the circle. We want to go back to that ethos of it. And I think, again, you know, to have a positive campaign this year where you can celebrate, you know, fellow human beings when it's been such a troubling, difficult time in so many ways, feels like maybe we're slightly getting to the end of the road of, you know, positivity across different countries. We hope so anyway. So
Yeah.
we hope to help with that a little bit.
Yes, and I was just thinking then, of course, that the majority of our healthcare workers and our frontliners are women. Statistically, I think it's about 75% of the NHS are female, at least, in most hospitals. So I think celebrating, again, many of us may want to celebrate our activist nurse friends, doctors, consultants, you know, and say thank you to them at this time as well, and celebrate the very specific activism of this time. You know, amazing.
And the healthcare circle are doing just that. They're going to be doing a walk in the number of footsteps and miles that a nurse does every day. They're going to be recreating that as part of their initiative for International Women's Day and calling for donations. So, you know, as I say, there's lots of creative ideas out there. So yeah, everyone get their thinking caps on and how they want to contribute.
Oh wow, I really love that. That so people can see so creative, yeah. And of course, if you get an idea while you're listening, please just write it down or put it in the comments and get involved, because we just, yeah, we can't wait to hear what people come up with. It's so
Well,
exciting.
even, Monday in the UK is when you can go and have a coffee on a park bench with with a friend. So, even if you do that and you choose, an inspiring woman in your life that you can see that day and just have a chat about, what it's like, then then maybe you might want to take a pledge. As simple as that. Just a connection is just a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yeah. And I've always believed is that same principle, when women gather together, when we have those spaces, those chats, all sorts of things come out of just having a chat sometimes, doesn't it? So
True. It's so true, so true. We can't help but sort of come up, talk and talk and talk and come up with creative ideas. Sometimes I think we have to rein ourselves in, don't we, a little bit as well. So
yeah. You have to go like one at a time, Katie, not all of them at once. It's not
yes,
possible.
fully get that with
Yeah,
you.
you're only one person. You can only do so many things in a day.
Mm.
Oh, it's wonderful to have that creativity and to be. It must be so exciting for you to be seeing ideas being implemented. And one of the things I love celebrating on the Zoomcast is stories, because I know stories are so personal and they really impact us. So I just wondered if you might be able to share some of your favourite stories of where a difference has been made, to whether it's an individual woman, or I'm sure you've got loads, but just maybe a couple of your favourites of
Well,
impact.
yeah, my favourite from this year has to be when we celebrated International Day of the Girl. So that was back in October, and we brought these incredible young feminists from the UK and Uganda together, and they came up with this idea called Girls Global Dance Hour, where they curated the playlist, they curated the posters, they had these incredible discussions, talking about things that young women face, and they held this really uplifting dance hour that had people from all ages joining in, and we did that with our project partner iRise, who are incredible, who work in Uganda and the UK, and the funds from that they raised went to support young women who had been out of school for a long time, longer than even in the UK, and often there were going to be at risk of not being sent back and potentially being married off early, so increased risk of child marriage. So our funds really helped with back to school kind of packs and supporting them to go back. So that was really positive, uplifting, and just seeing these young feminists, sort of the next generation, being so energized and giving us energy as well, was really, really lovely. I've spent a long time working in international development and been to a number of countries. And the last one I went to was to Bangladesh when the Rohingya crisis happened, when there were hundreds of thousands of people fleeing from Myanmar into Bangladesh following those killings. And I met some really incredible women, but horrific stories of their husbands, their fathers being shot in front of them having to flee with their little children over the border in boats, coming to these refugee camps. And we were meeting people who literally just arrived, were completely lost, frightened, but it was incredible to see the support that was being given by different organisations in those that huge refugees camp, and being able to, particularly the women, being able to direct them towards psychosocial support, if they were pregnant, to maternal health facilities, immunisations for children, and also really lovely safe spaces for women to talk and felt to be heard and felt that they were being listened to. Was just, as you say about the circle, the power of the circle, of just vision, seeing as women sitting around, and it doesn't alleviate everything, but having that space to talk to each other was really kind of empowering. So those are two stories from recently and from a few years ago, that change is really possible, and there are extraordinary organisations doing really wonderful things out there, and we love our project partners. They are on the front line, and anything we can do to help support and amplify them is incredible.
Wow, that's really inspiring, and I feel really moved and touched by yeah, just that feeling that even within the most horrific of situations, there is always hope, and there can be in some of the dehumanizing, most violent places, there's still, we can bring humanity, we can bring care, we can bring kindness, we can bring connection, and we can bring all the necessary physical sources of help as well. And as you say, psychological help, all those different levels. And that was actually something that inspired me when I read about Non Saber, and how a woman who goes to the refuge in November will receive that whole package
Yeah.
of support that she needs in order to start mending and thriving and
Yeah.
growing, recovering, and that's so important. And
Yeah,
what
just £50 will allow a woman at Non-Sabre to have that safe space and refuge for 10 days at least. And a lot of them are there for months to get that holistic support, as you say. So any of those funds that have been donated, they're really, really making a difference.
Yeah, that's really, really wonderful to hear. And you mentioned as well in those stories about women talking and being able to talk together, and the bringing of women's voices together, because in its experiences of severe oppression and also subtle oppression, women are silenced and their voices are not heard, and they are persuaded out of talking, or physically stopped from talking. So what do you feel that you've seen in your experience needs to happen? What would you like to see happen more to help bring women's voices, particularly those that are marginalised or vulnerable, less privileged communities? How can we help bring those voices to the fore?
Yeah, I think, working through our project partners is about taking those stories that they're gathering and being able to amplify those as much as possible. And where they feel comfortable, those women being, part of our events to talk about those issues. Because as you say, a lot of the time they are hidden, or those stories are hidden, and it might be they don't feel comfortable in certain circumstances, but in a group of women, we all know this, you might open up a little bit more, and finding those stories where it's not just about the issues that are facing us, but also the commonality of, what it's like having children, what are we eating, what are we cooking, what are we, all those things, and bringing a bit of, laughter between women. I think the thing I always found when I went to different countries was you can always hear a cackle of women in the laughter of women in a corner somewhere, can't you, no matter what they're doing. So I think that's particularly what I miss, of kind of seeing friends and family and gatherings of people. So but that's worldwide, isn't it? So
Yeah.
as much as we can do to bring those voices to the forefront, I think is, and hear their stories from them is really key.
Yes. And I guess we can all, a lot of us have access to things like social media where we can share and we can be looking out. That might be one of our pledges, for
Yeah,
example, is to watch out for those stories and retweet them, or just sharing, just posting can take 30 seconds, can't it? Just to press retweet or whatever, but just to actually start flagging up and paying attention, I guess, then what we attend to grows, doesn't it? So the
I
more we're
think that
all aware. Yeah.
I think that's right. And I think, as I mentioned, the Black Lives Matter protest movement over the summer, as horrific as they were, gave a space for people to feel like they should and could learn about issues, and also take that responsibility of amplifying, where if you do have a platform, no matter how small, or just even using the time you've got with friends and family to talk about issues, I think it's really, really important, and can, all those small changes lead to something big, don't they? So
Yeah.
that's the power of community.
Yeah, and there's also often issues that we feel uncomfortable about talking about. And I think, as you say, one of the really important things that's come out of Black Lives Matter movement is people having permission to talk and to say, to examine our conditioning. For example, for me as a white person, I need to look and be able to say, I've been conditioned in certain ways, and I need to perhaps unpackage some of that because it might be damaging to people of color. And therefore, but actually having permission for people to start grappling with those kind of difficult topics that perhaps haven't had permission to, or not known how to start to even talk about. So, I mean, where have you seen in your work, as you mentioned, you've done so much international work, where have you seen perhaps instances of how international or cross-cultural dialogue can help, or what do you feel helps open up some of those really important dialogues that we need to have?
Well, I sort of came back to, the idea of those young feminists really kind of opened my eyes a little bit more, of using the conduit of music was just one example of that's a commonality across cultures, that people are interested in music in different ways, but it helped open up the conversation in some instances, that you can start to talk about what your interests are, and that then leads on to other things. So you don't have to, I would say, you don't need to dive into what could be serious issues straight away, but find those things that every human being is sort of interested in, and kind of building on that. So building rapport from someone you don't know, finding those easy ways in, to start that conversation is really, really important. And then it leads on to, as you say, so many ideas, conversations, God knows, changes of the world just come from things like that, don't they? So really important.
Yeah, and as an artist, I really believe that. I see every day in my life that when we have a participatory experience, often in a circle of singers or a circle of people gathered together to enjoy something together, it puts us in touch with something of our basic shared humanity, that we're all enjoying something together. Then we have that common ground to then start having dialogue, start having connections, start building connections across what might be perceived as boundaries or barriers, which is so exciting. And I love that, yeah, music has always done it. Actually brings to mind the story of it was a blues musician who in the States used music to befriend Ku Klux Klan members, and and he was black, and he was going around befriending people through his music. And as a result of getting to know him and enjoying his music, these people, the Ku Klux Klan members, were actually releasing some of their views and changing.
Interesting.
It was just amazing story.
I think this is why a lot of countries, particularly British, love tea. It's kind of breaks down barriers, doesn't it? Let's just have a chat over a cup of tea. It's that starting point that I think has long been missed this year, hasn't it? So all the more for lots of tea, more tea being consumed in person.
Absolutely, and I've really enjoyed being part of your Chai Day at Appeals, actually, isn't it? That's another of the circles appeals perhaps you'd like to say about, that's
Yeah,
wonderfully
the
supportive.
Chai Day's wonderful. It was first organised by our Asian Circle, a wonderful group of South Asian women supporting other South Asian women across the world. And they came up with the concept of Chai Day, similar to a coffee morning, and linking it to the 16 days of activism on ending violence, which always starts in the autumn, November the 25th, and goes up until the 10th of December, which is Human Rights Day. So yeah, linking it to that and using that as a moment to kind of come together, have a lovely time, but also talk about the issues and raise some funds to support women. So yes, they did it again this year, and lots of people from the circle joined in. And yeah, I think this year we were talking about how chai is lovely, but we also all need to have a mocktail, cocktail, glass of wine, strong coffee as well. So broadening it out somewhat as well was quite fun.
A shot of something else in the tea, perhaps. Yes.
Yes, for people who drink it, I think that was probably very vital. Yes.
Certainly this year, probably.
Yeah, and the other thing linked to that is that the Circle launched its series. First inaugural one was a couple of weeks ago, was the Circle Cocktail Hour. So essentially that's going to be our series happening every couple of months, where we have an inspiring speaker, but bringing Circle members together to connect, because as you say, in-person events have been really difficult, and hopefully we can do them more, but that's an opportunity again to be inspired and build that community where possible.
Fantastic. And if people wanted to find out more and get involved with the community, how can they do that? How can they find the circle?
Come to the Circle website. There's lots and lots of information on there. Our social media pages have lots on there as well. And we've got a wonderful relationship manager called Peter Barrett, who Katie, you know, who if you are maybe a bit lost or you have got lots of creative ideas, she can help connect you with other members or help point you in the right direction. So yeah, get in touch. We can't wait to hear from everyone.
Oh, I'm sure many people will feel inspired and want to come and get involved, because it's just wonderful work that you're doing, and I'm so grateful to be part of it and to be able to share about it today. And I'm really excited for International Women's Day and to see the campaign. When is it launching?
It is launching on the 1st of March, so we'll have a week's run up until International Women's Day on the 8th and continue it after, because International Women's Day is on a Monday, so it feels like it's the start of another week of activism that we can carry on this year. So yeah, plenty of time for people to get involved. Join us, look out for it on social media. If you're interested in attending an inspiring event, then yeah, look out for that on the website as well. So as I said, we've got some great speakers and performances, more to be announced. And yeah, come and join us. The more the merrier as part of the Circle community.
Oh, that's wonderful. I just really am so excited. I'm really looking forward to all of it and this wonderful week of activism and celebrating, uplifting and sharing the voices of women and our allies worldwide as well. It's just, yeah, phenomenally exciting. Thank you
And
so much.
Katie, you're such an inspiring member. So thank you for having me on, but also all the brilliant work you do for the Circle and all the creative ideas you've got.
Oh, bless you. Well, it's the least I can do. You know, I just feel if I can make just a small, that's one thing I say, I can just make a small drop in the ocean of a difference. And if it maybe touches one person and then, you know, but I know that I also am transformed by the experience of that. So I'm very grateful myself, you know, to be, as I said, to be part of the Circle, to feel that nourishment of feeling connected to amazing women like yourself. So really thank you for your leadership and thank you for coming and taking your time today to talk to us. It's really amazing.
Very, very welcome, Katie. And yeah, we can't wait to see everyone that comes and joins us in whatever way they do.
Yeah. Happy International Women's Day.
Yeah, happy
Yay!
International Women's Day. Let's make it a celebration this year because extraordinary things are happening out there. So yes, look forward to seeing everyone soon.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Raakhi. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie.